differ from or oppose your party?
Well, the vote that I just mentioned on amending 960 was a major issue that I voted against my party. There are also some other areas in the area of workforce standards on construction that I voted against. But 960 was the major issue. Primarily because of the vote, 56% of my district favored the initiative, and I didn't think we should ignore that. I think we should honor the people's will. I also did a poll to try to get what the opinions were within our district, and a good majority of them were that we should not amend 960.
Any questions?
How do I differ from my party? I filed a mini reporting with the Public Disclosure Commission that I would take no more than $5,000 to run an election. I believe it is about getting out there, about having the right policies, about telling people what you stand for, and it becomes a word-of-mouth campaign. I'm very happy to say we will be pulling the PayPal button off of the website today because we didn't get to 5,000, but we've decided to be absolutely fiscally responsible with the money, and we don't need any more. We're about $1,000 away, so we're at $4,000. But we decided, what do we need to spend more money on? Maybe a few more signs. So we're done. We're done campaigning as far as asking for money. I'm very happy to say I made it through the primary on $2,000. It isn't about getting money. Would the Republican Party have liked me to run a bigger, larger, grandier campaign, grandiosier, I guess, or bigger campaign? Maybe, yes, but I said no. That was not what I believed.
Thank you. So, moving on to a more specific topic, that being audits. So what would you put into place which would force the state to take action to correct or implement audit findings?
Can you repeat that one more time, please?
Absolutely. What would you put into place which would force the state to take action to correct or implement audit findings?
I think there's a couple things we could do. I think every agency, part of their budget should be the audit. I also think that once the audit is completed and it's been determined that X number of dollars can be streamlined and your agency could be more efficient, that if you choose to not implement those suggestions by the auditor, that your budget is that much less the following year. If you don't think the auditor's right and you don't think that you can streamline what the auditor believes, and that is his job, telling you how you can make your business better, government agency better, then I think you should do with less funds. And rather quickly, I think you will fall in line with what the auditor has recommended as far as what's going to work best for the taxpayer dollars.
Right.
First of all, the state agencies are audited periodically or regularly. I think that probably the best thing to do would be to have a situation that I don't think you should force in all cases the agency to pick up on the recommendations of the audit, but I think there should be a presumption in favor of adopting the provisions of the audit, and that the agency would have to explain exactly why they're not doing that, and that would be subject to an appropriate legislative review.
So, staying with audits and moving on more into the fiscal arena, what is your opinion about the Governor Gregoire's proposed, actually 6.3% cut across the board tax cut? Staying with you, Fred.
6.3%,
I think it was
not tax cut. You mean?
I'm sorry, 6% across the board cut.
Cut
It says
through
tax
agencies.
cut, but it's a cut.
I think in the best of all worlds that decision of where to cut should be made by the legislature. The problem is that we're in a political environment. We're not in the best of all worlds, and people act with different motivations. I support the governor's 6.3% cut because I think had we come back into session, it could have been used by one party to attempt to embarrass another party and could have resulted in gridlock, as in fact we had some gridlock earlier in the springtime. If we're able to sit down across the aisle and put together something ahead of time, I think that would have been the best possible solution, but I don't think in this world that was going to happen this year in an election year.
Thank you. Linda, how do you feel about the governor's proposed 7% across the board cut?
I think it's unfortunate. I believe that the legislature should be back in there analyzing each and every agency and seeing where those cuts could be made. Across the board cuts affect agencies who've already done the best they can as far as they're concerned, and we have to believe them that they're really truly doing the best they can. So I think that each agency should be individually analyzed to determine how much of a cut to make the necessary cuts that we need, how much should each agency cut. So if the legislature went back and analyzed the agencies, I think they could come up with something that would work for all agencies, not just having everyone cut, where for some agencies it would be far more onerous than for others.
So since the governor has made her cuts, the next question is, what is the toughest budget decision you will have to make in the 2011 session?
The toughest decision is going to be balancing the budget. And I believe that we're going to have to look at the pensions, we're going to have to look at state contracts. It just has to be done. We've promised something our state can't afford to pay. I think the private sector pays 24 to 100% of their health care insurance. The taxpayers pay 88% of the benefits for state employees. Could they pay more? Could they pay all of it? I mean, all of it is a huge burden as far as, families. So I'm just saying some of it could be extreme. You could look at it as extreme, but some of it can be small measures. Maybe going from the state employees paying 12%, maybe they could pay 24% like the private sector. Could we cut back on how pensions are funded? Yes, I believe we can. I think they should go from a defined benefit to a defined contribution, whereas these pensions aren't guaranteed.
Thank you. Brett?
I agree that the most important decision will be involving the budget and how to balance the budget. And unlike the federal government, we are obligated by law to balance the budget. And there are certain things we cannot reduce. You can't reduce some of the contractual provisions without being taken to court. You can't reduce debt service. Basic education is a paramount duty of the state, so part of the basic education budget we cannot reduce. Everything else is fair game, and the real tough decision is going to be where do you make those cuts. It is very easy to say, well, you can go ahead in the government, you can make it more efficient, and we should do that. We must do that. We have to do that. And with any organization of the size of our government, there are opportunities for that. But where within, after you're done that, where within the social safety net that we have, where within our education system, we're going to find that's going to be a tough decision.
Well, a follow-up on that tough decision from one of our participants is, well, it's easy to criticize those in office and talk about cutting government. Where exactly would you cut, given there are costs and services and people affected?
Well, for 63 years of my life, I was one of those who sat on the outside and did criticize government. So, and once you get inside it, it is very difficult. But that's why they pay us the big bucks. I think you have to look at what does the government have to do. Public safety is number one, I think, along with education is a paramount duty of the state. And after you take those, you then come down to a list of priorities that progressively become less and less important. Some of them are good things and things I'd like to be able to do if we had the dollars to do them, but we don't have the dollars to do all that stuff. And I think you have to look at each item in that hierarchy to see where we can cut.
Thank you. And Linda, same question.
In 2002, Governor Locke established the priorities of government. It's just not being adhered to as well as it should be. Yes, it is the paramount duty of the state to fund education. So education gets 23.5% of our state budget, so they need to be paid right away. And then we go through and we look at every other agency, where does it fall? It's a core function of government. We have education, we have safety, we have health. We list those organizations and the people they serve according to our core functions of government. When it gets to the bottom and there isn't any money left, I'm really sorry, but your agency is not a core function of government, and your agency is not going to have the funding you would like. Could the private sector pick it up? Maybe it could. But as far as the taxpayer dollars are concerned, it needs to be a priorities of government. They need to be listed, and when there's no more money, that's it.
So this is a flip side of that same question now. So we talked about how we're going to cut or where you would like to cut your priorities. But this question begins with the increases in the cost of government are a function of increases in population and inflation. Given this reality, state your 3 top priorities for funding and how you propose to live within taxpayers' means during these hard times.
So basically the top 3 on my priorities of government: education, it should be public safety, and it should be health. So those are the 3 areas that we need to concentrate our taxpayer dollars on. I've said it before, it would be nice to fund the State Historical Society. The private sector could do that. There's functions of government that just don't need to happen. So yes, we have to fund the core necessities. And so I think that that would be the best way to go, are the top 3.
The paramount duty of the state is to provide for basic education for children. It's in the preamble of the Constitution, so that has to be, paramount duty is the highest, so that has to be, I think, number 1. Historically, the reasons for government have been protection of its citizens. I think that's important, and that's you can interpret that in a variety of ways. It certainly involves protection in terms of the criminal justice system, the corrections facilities, and also I think it extends beyond that to protecting those who are least able in our society to protect themselves. I think those are the real critical areas of priority of government.